So we'll do a little bit of Unreal Engine today, and we'll probably introduce a little bit of math as well. So my daughter's been observing me teaching you guys how to like put objects in the world and add materials and stuff like that. And so she's like, "Can I play your game, Daddy?" I'm like, "You mean the Unreal Engine editor thing?" "Yeah." And so she actually dragged out all these blocks. I probably wouldn't have done it that way. I probably would have made one cube, you know, and maybe scaled it up, you know, something like that to make a wall. But she actually took the time and effort to put each of these different blocks and texture them and put some shiny wooden floors on the inside and like a tree, I guess. Yeah. A tree there. Some staircases. Originally the staircase curved the other way, and she kept falling off, so she fixed that, and then when you play it, the head of the snowman falls off. So she did that deliberately. So she said, "Do you want to decapitate a snowman?" Now, one thing you guys might notice is that the floor looks kind of garbage. Do you guys see how pixelated the floor is here? Like you can kind of count the pixels in it. Looks really bad. The reason for that is because she applied a grass texture to essentially a cube. Here, let's put a new cube out, and let's put a texture on it. Yoink. Here, let's put a cobblestone rough on it. Okay. And so if you look at it, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or so rows of bricks. Now, what happens if we scale this? If we scale it, the bricks get bigger. You see that? And there's still 8 rows of bricks. And if we make it really big, then these bricks just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the thing kind of looks bad, right? Like it kind of looks bad. Not as bad as the grass, but that's why the grass looks that way. It's because the texture has been applied to a square that has been seriously scaled up in size, and it doesn't look good. So there's solutions to that, and we'll learn those solutions when we get more into materials in the future. But basically, yeah, scaling is something you need to be careful with, because it's very easy to make something look like garbage if you scale it. And her staircase is floating, so I'm going to hit the end key and snap it to the ground. And let's see if we can still take the staircase now, actually. You have to jump up. Yeah. Maybe we'll just scale it up a little bit. There's a maximum step size that if you hit a lip like that, it controls if the character will step up onto it or not. That's actually one of the game settings you can control, but I'm just going to make the staircase a little bit bigger, and then we can walk up on top of it. I didn't like the look of the floating staircase like that. That looks a little bit better. And so you have to make sure that any steps you want to have, ooh, that's a metal staircase. Good job, Ada. Any steps you have are smaller than the step size in the game, or your character will just kind of get stuck like that. Okay. Any questions you guys have? Ah, I died. Okay. There's a kill plane also. This is actually a good point to mention this. There's something called the kill plane, and the kill plane is located beneath the world. And if any object falls out of the world, or if you fall out of the world like I just did, it deletes it. And if the player falls out of the world, that's it. It's game over. The game stops simulating. So that's done because a very common bug, I'm sure you guys have seen this before, is things falling out of the world. And that can happen for a variety of reasons. But the kill plane exists beneath the world just to stop things from falling forever. And the engine having to simulate physics for things falling forever, you know. It's a cool little circular staircase you got there, made out of metal. That's a little bit of a weird interpenetration right there of staircase and rock. And you see how big these blocks are, because, again, it's scaled up. Now, you see how that also looks 3D? You see how it looks like the surface of that is 3D? Guess what? It's not. It's completely flat. See? If I fly close to the surface, you can see it's completely flat. There's just this weird distortion effect. The distortion effect is from the texture. The texture is like paint that you can paint on a surface. In some cases, it's just paint, like this grass here is just basically paint. But in some cases, it can simulate depth, and it can simulate things reflecting in different directions. That's all flat. Let me put the cobblestones back out here. So if you look at the cobblestone here, let's rotate it maybe. You can see the different bricks on the cobblestone might be picking up light from different directions. And I don't know if I can see it on that one. But they do that to simulate depth. And so you can have a 2D surface that reflects light as if it was a curved surface. And so if you move a light around, let's put a light out here. You see that? So even though this is a completely flat wall, right? It's a completely flat wall. I didn't change any of the geometry at all. You see how the different parts of the rocks are reflecting different parts of the light? It's pretty cool, huh? It's a pretty good looking effect. And oftentimes we do that when we don't want to blow our triangle budget out of the water drawing all these curved shapes. What we do instead is you can have what are called bump maps or displacement maps on a surface where it will pretend to be curved even though it's flat. And so like here you can see this thing is pretending to have very large raised stone surfaces, but it's actually flat. And if you get really close to it, the illusion becomes apparent, and you get these really weird distortion effects if you get too close to it. So it kind of looks good from a distance, but you don't want to get too close. And we'll learn how to do that. Yep, parallax. Yep. Is the homework only about board games? Yes, you are going to pitch a game mechanic for a board game. You're gonna pitch a video game. Don't worry, later on in the semester. What key to snap the stairs to the floor? End. Yeah. So you have to pitch a new mechanic, an interesting mechanic, or a new twist on an old mechanic that is interesting and compelling. Basically, design a board game is essentially what you got to do, and that'll be due on Tuesday with a group. It'll be a group grade. And if anybody freeloads, then just report them to me, and I'll put the freeloaders into a group together. End key. There we go. Snap to the ground. Okay. So, what else can we talk about here? You guys remember how to apply materials to things? You can just drag them out if you want, or you can drag them onto the material element here. Either way works. We haven't done lights yet, so let's do that. So if you go to the light tab here and just drag out a light, you can put a point light. A point light's a point that emits light. So it's a yeah, I don't know how to describe it any better than that. A light bulb is the icon, and it kind of does work like a light bulb. Light bulbs are a little different from point lights because light bulbs don't shoot light straight down, right? The base of a light bulb actually will block a little bit of the light. So a light bulb isn't quite as perfect as this. This light here is a perfect spherical light source. You know, it emits light in a perfect sphere. You know. Whereas real light bulbs, they have, you know, if you look at the ceiling, you'll see a bright spot sometime. Things like that. But Unreal Engine actually does have the ability to support more complicated lights. You can actually import lights from the National Light Association, whatever that's called, and you can import their light profile for different light bulbs and things like that, and it'll actually simulate lights that aren't uniform in emitting brightness, which is really cool. I've never done it, but it just seems like a really cool thing to do, to have, you know, put a lamp in your architectural sketch of somebody's house, and you put a lamp and you have the light profile actually match the light profile you would use in real life there. So that's a point light. That's probably the most common light you can add to a world. If you want to change the color on it, over on the right-hand side here on the Details tab, you can see that there is a light color right here. And so if you click on the little drop-down menu here, you can edit the RGB values. RGB values range from 0 to 255. 000 is black, 255, 255, 255 is white. If you change it to 255, 0255, it's now purple. If you change it to 25500, it's now pure red. If I change it to 12800, it's a dark red. If I change it to 12864, it's now brown. 1286450, it's a taupe. Okay, so you can change the light color however you want, and you can also change the intensity of the lights. So this is 8 candles of light, so it's as bright as 8 candles. So if I change that to 80 candles, you can see it gets a lot brighter. And let's move this around. There we go. And so there's some dark areas over here because I moved the sun. So you can see it illuminating an area. And so it's very normal. 800 candles, 8,000 candles, blah, blinding. So lighting levels are, you know, something that you got to think about when you're making a video game. You know, how much light there is in the level, making sure you can see things adequately, setting the mood. It's a very, you know, if you've ever done theater, you know, lighting is a whole discipline, right? And you can be a theater lighting major, and there's all sorts of tricks and things like that you can use to highlight things with lights. You can set mood with lights. There's a whole lot of tricks you can do with it. So that we'll maybe talk about later. Okay. So point light is a sphere. It just emits light in every direction. A spotlight emits light in one direction. So let's get this spotlight over here. Let's I'm going to move it over this way, and I'm going to rotate it so I change the direction the light is facing. This way. And I'll integrate 100 light. And so you can see the spotlight is now shining. It's a directional light in a cone direction. And so if you rotate the spotlight, you don't need to rotate a point light. There's no point. It's spherical. But you can change the direction the spotlight is facing. And spotlights are very, very useful in video games to highlight important things, right? So if you have a quest in which the user has to find a certain item, it's very common, you know, and you like toss it over in a corner somewhere. Like there's the little MacGuffin back over there. Let's shrink it down. Well, it doesn't matter. Let's say you find it. Geometry. Props. Chair. Okay. So you're supposed to find the chair, right? And your quest is find the chair, and the people are like walking around like, I don't see a chair, man. It's really dark. I can't really see anything. They get frustrated, right? And so if your levels are too dark and you're making them search for something and the lighting's really bad, or if you have black on black like you do here, there's no contrast, it gets really annoying. Is that a chair back there? No, it's just a reflection. And so, you know, you can see the chair here is hidden in darkness, you know. It's really annoying. And so maybe you want it hidden in darkness. Maybe you want it to be a little bit of a challenge. But at the same time, you don't want people to get frustrated. And so what you want people to do is feel very clever, right? That they found it. And so what you can do is you can add a point light to it, and maybe that's even too bright. I'm going to turn it down to 2 candles. Okay. So now I'm running around searching for it, and oh look, what's that? And you walk over here, Yeah, oh, look, there's the chair. You know, the spotlight isn't even visible. But by putting a spotlight over it, what that does is it draws the human eye. It draws our attention to whatever object that you have a spotlight placed on. And so that's a very common trick you can use to highlight something or to make people walk over and look at it, right? Like there's lights on this thing, so somebody's going to come over and kind of check it out. Okay, nothing's there. Oh, there's the light. And or there's the chair. You know, you don't even see the light, right? You don't even see the light. It looks like it's just natural, but what you've actually done is used a spotlight to have somebody grab onto something. One of my favorite games of all time is Kingdom Come Deliverance. It is a medieval role-playing game like Skyrim, but with no magic. The closest thing they have to magic is brewing alcohol. You want to save your game, you drink Savior Schnapps. That saves your game. So there's, yeah. Some of that, I guess. But by and large, like even the brewing of things, like if you want to cure food poisoning, like you get charcoal, right? Which activated charcoal is good for food, the food poisoning. But there's one quest in the game that really annoys me. They send you into this cave to find a spoon. It's a wooden spoon, and it's beneath the monastery at Sasau, I believe. And there's a cave that's next to a river, and finding the cave takes a little bit of time. It's not very hard. You just kind of run around, like, oh, there's a cave next to a river, and you run in, and you have to find the spoon. And the cave's not big. It's like not a big cave. I wonder if I can show it to you instead of just telling you about it. But the trouble is, the cave is brown. It's got a lot of mud and roots and things like that. And the spoon is brown. And I literally spent half an hour looking at every single damn pixel in that cave, hitting the pickup key, and where the hell is the damn spoon? And so fast travels there, he's going to get the quest.
Me? Mischief, are you? Then I'll be very grateful.
There you go, got the quest. He's now going to run down to the riverside. By the way, this game is fantastically historically accurate. There are some things that are inaccurate just because they were like 3D scanning reenactors' helmets, but that's like the level of like criticism that people have on the game. So here's the cave. Do you guys see the spoon? And so like the level of criticism is, yeah, reenactors have bigger eye slits than historical helmets because reenactors like to see more. Like that's the level of criticism they have of this historical accuracy of the game, because it is amazingly historically accurate. I actually traveled to the Czech Republic to visit the area where the game took place because I loved the game so much, and also because I heard that they had pretty faithfully recreated a 10 by 10 kilometer, 100 square kilometers, maybe it's 10, maybe it's just 10 square kilometers, one or the other. They recreated a big chunk of the Bavarian countryside in the game. I'm like, I got to see that for myself. I was going to be near Czechia anyway. I'm like, I want to go to Prague, and everyone's like, oh, I heard Prague's amazing. I'm like, yeah, Prague, yeah. And then we get to Prague, and the next day I hop on a train and I travel to this town. Well, actually, I didn't go to Sasau. Went past it, but I went to some of the towns in the game, and I hiked around the Czech countryside, and it was very, very accurate. Like I knew where I was from having played the video game. It was really amazing, and the developers, Warhorse, really should be commended for it. However, this quest, do any of you guys see the spoon? Nope.
Looks ordinary. A bit too ordinary.
This ball is enough to complete the quest. No need to look for any other emails.
Yeah. See, did you see it? It does bowls enough. Yeah, there's a spoon in there, and it's completely bloody invisible because it is brown on brown. And so what they should have done was put a very, very subtle spotlight on the spoon. Just enough so that your eye picks up the difference in contrast. You're like, wait, is that it? You walk over there, oh, it is it. Pick it up. as it is in the game, it's invisible. So even though I'm talking smack about KCD, Kingdom Come Deliverance, highly recommend you guys play it if you're into role playing games. Very, very accurate game, and like your character starts off not knowing how to read. Why? Because you're the son of a blacksmith. Why would you know how to read? And so there's literally a quest. You have to travel across the entire map to get to the one scholar in the region, and you spend like 2 weeks with them learning to read, and you actually sit there and transcribe Latin as part of the quest. Like you're literally working as a scribe kind of to learn to read. And you start off shooting bows and arrows, like you pull on it and then the thing's going like this, because in real life, it's actually hard to shoot arrows the first time. Like I hit myself in the eye with an arrow, which is pretty amazing. I put my finger on the tip of the arrow and it popped off the string and whacked myself in the eyeball with the back of it. And as you get better, when you start off, if you shoot a bow without wearing bracers, the string snaps into your wrist and it actually damages you. Like it's just so much historical accuracy in the game that it's really, really cool if you're into history. Yeah, all the events in the game are from Bavarian history. As far as they can tell, like some things were destroyed at a certain time period, and they assume it's due to the war that was going on at the time, but they might not be sure. One really amazing thing was like one historian criticized the game for putting town walls on a town that didn't have town walls, but the developer said, well, based on the town and its location, we think it probably did have walls there. And then they actually did a dig and they actually found walls where the developers had put the walls in the game, and historians had thought that was inaccurate. And that was like that's just mind blowing. So yeah, if you ever find yourself in the Czech Republic, the Czech Republic's amazing. All the Czech people I met there were really cool, and it's inexpensive by American standards, at least, to live and travel there and stuff like that. So highly worth it. Okay, so you might notice that in the shadows here, it says preview. You guys see that? It says preview. And what's happening is that the engine is guessing where shadows are going to lie, but it is not a very accurate representation of where shadows are. And so you can actually change, in addition to point lights like this, and in addition to spotlights like this, you can change the direction of the sun. So if you click on the sun, or you can find it through the world outliner, you can actually rotate the direction of the sun. And it'll do a preview shadowing, a very quick and dirty preview shadowing, like that. You see how the wall isn't blocking the thing. Right? And so you can do that. If you want it to be like noon, you can have the sun coming from straight overhead. And so one thing to watch out for when you're doing the sun is that when the sun's at a sharp angle, like if it's sunset, let's say, if it's sunset like that, then the color of the sun actually changes, right? And so you'd actually need to click on the sun and maybe change it to, kind of play with it a little bit until it turns into kind of a nice, let's see, okay, golden color, maybe like that. Yeah, it looks ugly. You know what I mean, right? So when it gets towards sunset, and the sky's the wrong color too, right? When it gets towards sunset, the color of the sun changes. The color of the sky technically changes, and the reason for that is because wavelengths of light move through the atmosphere. Different wavelengths of light move through the atmosphere differently. That's why the sky's blue, and that's why at sunset and sunrise you see more reds and purples and things like that. And so you have to be careful if you're simulating the sky to have the sun color change as well. And it creates very atmospheric, levels and things like that. Now, you'll notice that these shadows maybe don't look that great. And so what we do all the time is we rebuild the lighting. And so you see where it says preview here. If you want to get rid of that preview, what you do is you go to build and you choose build lighting only. But before you do that, you should probably choose what level of quality you want for your lighting. And so for small levels, you probably don't need preview. That's the fastest thing. I usually go with medium for small projects because preview looks pretty rough sometimes. You'll see these weird stair step edges on the shadows and things like that look pretty bad. And then you choose build lighting only. And then what it's going to do is it's going to set up a connection to all the other computers in the lab. Oh, you're not in a lab? Then it's just yourself. Sorry, sucks for you. If you're in the computer lab right now on campus, if any of you have been there, my lord, it's been a year. All the computers have the lighting build engine, swarm build or whatever it's called, installed on it, and so any of the idle machines will start participating in the lighting computations. And what it's doing, you see how that shadow got nice and crisp now? What it does is it essentially takes the sun, there's the sun over there, right? And what it does is it, from the angle of the sun, it computes the profile of all the objects in the world, and then creates a 3D shadow out of it. Wherever that 3D shadow intersects other geometries, then that's shadowed. And so you can see this box here, it created a 3D shadow silhouette, and it stretches it out towards infinity, away from the sun. And where it intersects the floor, all that gets shadowed. Where it intersects the wall, that little bit right there gets shadowed as well. And it's basically a perfect box outline. And if you were to do a poorer lighting quality, these edges might be like little ugly stair steps and things like that. And sometimes you need better than medium quality. Large objects in particular have very coarse light maps on them. And so if you scale an object up really big, let's see if we can find that. Lighting. Yeah, so right here, light map resolution to use on the component. So you can actually make a light map is the thing that holds the shadows on it, basically. So you can increase the resolution of shadows on the surface, and you probably want to turn off having the floor casting shadows because the floor is on the ground. It's not it's not going to be like casting a shadow on anything else, probably. And so for like some of the bigger objects, you might want to disable shadows and things like that, and turn up the resolution. Okay. Snowman is getting scary. Yeah. But you can see that's a very nice shadow there, right? Whereas with a lower light map quality, it would be, you know. You can also just click build, and that will do lighting and visibility and nav networks and yeah, and so that's a full pre-computation thing. So what does pre-computation mean? Well, whenever you're in a video game, the most important thing, despite what other people tell you, is not looking good. You know, that's normally my philosophy for life. You know, number one is you gotta look good. But number two, and number one is frame rate, right? Is frame rate. You got to have a good frame rate in your video game, or people will launch the game. It's going, and they're like, nope, I'm not playing that. And then they quit. Or they go to the graphics settings and try and turn the graphics settings down, or something like that. But if it's still bad, Cyberpunk, a lot of people just won't play it. Okay, so one of the things you can do is pre-compute visibility, which is one of the parts of this thing. And so when you pre-compute visibility, what it does is it says, all right, if I'm standing here, can I see inside of that? What do you guys think? Can I see inside of my daughter's little playhouse she built up there? What do you guys think? If I'm down here on the ground playing the game, can I see inside of it? Not really. No. I can see the tree. I can see the tree up there, and like I can see like maybe that box up there. Let's see if I can hit it. Too low. Whatever, you know what I mean. Like that inner box up there, like I can see, but yeah, like most of the inside of that house she built up there, it's not visible until here, right? And so basically, what the engine could do, and there's lots of different ways engines can do this, is say if you're down here, then don't bother trying to draw the floor here. And maybe I have a bunch of trophies sitting around and monsters and things like that. If those monsters aren't visible, they're not visible. And so don't draw them. Okay? And so, maybe draw those things up there because they are visible. But don't draw the stuff inside of here. And so that's called a visibility pre-computation. So you can do a lot of those computations before you run the game. And it's very common for video games to spend, like the developers, to spend hours or days or weeks even to run all the viz computations. A visibility computation where you can have, like, for every square foot in the world, what things you can see and what things you can't see. And then rather having to do all that at runtime, like if you have a giant world like that's simulating Earth, you don't want to have to go through every object on Earth. What you want is, if I'm standing inside of my office here, what can I see? Okay, well, I can basically see everything in my office. Cool. What about the things in my closet? Well, the door is sometimes open, the door is sometimes closed. They're dynamic. I have to try drawing those things just in case the doors move, right? So it's the engine would probably be drawing my tunic and my gambeson and things like that inside of the closet just in case, because the doors can move. And so the engine can't know before the game even runs if those things are visible or not, because sometimes the door is there, sometimes the door is not there. Maybe if it's intelligent, it has a switch or something that says if the door is closed, these things are behind it. If the door is open, draw them. Probably not. So it'd probably be drawing all my medieval garb and things like that in the closet, all my fencing gear, my drones, things like that. A drone in there, I guess. But then a little bit of the quarter, but then nothing else. None of the rest of my house is visible from inside of here. So, like 99% of my house, because I live in apparently a 1,000-room house. I'm kidding. 99% of my house is not visible from where I'm sitting right now. Now, if I were to walk over to the entrance, then more of my house would be visible. So you can do, because the house doesn't move, the house is static, or hopefully it's static. It could be an earthquake, as long as the geometry of the house doesn't change, then the game engine could pre-compute what's visible from where, and that makes your frame rate much faster. And so you do all that by clicking build, and it'll take a while sometimes. Simple things like this, it might not take very long, but it also depends on how powerful your machine is. Most of the time where you're at right now, you're just going to build the lighting, because you're going to be annoyed by it saying preview over and over again in the shadows. Okay. Nature is scary. All right, nature is scary. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, I should probably talk about that too. Yeah, I was in Kyoto. Was it 2018? Yes. I was in Kyoto in 2018 when the 7.0 earthquake hit. That was exciting. That was really fun. I was walking down the street with my daughter, and the roof starts vibrating. And she's like, "Daddy, are there people on the roof?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think so. I think there's people dancing on the roof. That's really weird. Like, in a country like Japan, you wouldn't think people would be dancing on the roof, but they're dancing on the roof." And she thinks about it. She's like, "No, Daddy, I think that's an earthquake." I'm like, No. It sounds like there's people running on the roof." She's like, No. Look at all the people. And I look around, and the Japanese people are like, and they like stop, and they are like staring at the roof in fear. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it is an earthquake. Damn." And I didn't actually feel it because we were in a crowded street next to one of the biggest shrines in Kyoto. So I literally couldn't feel it, but the roof, it was a covered walkway, was vibrating so hard that it just sounded like people were running, having a track meet on the roof. So, yeah, we got stuck in Kyoto for the day. I go back to the hotel, and the elevators are all shut down because they don't let you use an elevator until somebody's inspected it. And we got kicked out. That was the last night of our hotel, so we had to transport all of our luggage all the way down the stairs and all the way back up the stairs and all the way back down the stairs in a high rise. And then we had to find more accommodations with 9 million other people trying to find accommodations with the train network down. So that was exciting. Yeah, that was real fun. It actually was. I mean, it turned out fine. I mean, a couple people died tragically, but it was an interesting experience. So if you guys see over here, do you guys see how it's kind of blurry? Hopefully it's coming through on Discord okay for you guys. But like down here, you see how it's like a little bit crisper, and over here it's like blurred. Do you guys see that? Is that visible to you guys? Japanese people have sword blades for ladder steps. Yeah, I wish. They actually have people go out and inspect every square foot of the tracks. So before a train line will go back in service, they actually send a crew down the train line, and they inspect every pillar. They look for cracks in the concrete, and they go through and they basically test the entire train line. And they got the Shinkansen, the bullet trains, they got those working again by that night. So people were queued up at the train station, the Kyoto train station, waiting for the Shinkansen to come back on. But we were taking a regional train. The regional trains took until the next day to come back up. And so we had to get an Airbnb, and that was interesting, staying in like an old Japanese house in an old Japanese neighborhood. It's kind of cool. Walked around just the suburbs of Kyoto at midnight, playing Pokemon Go against Buddhist monks. I mean, it was cool. It was cool. It's capturing their gym, and somebody on the inside of the Buddhist monastery was capturing it back for me. So it had to be a monk, I assume, or at least that's my mental model of it. What earthquake was this? This was the 7.0 that hit Kyoto and or Osaka region maybe in 2018. It wasn't nearly as bad as the 9.0 that hit the Tohoku earthquake, the one that took out Sendai and northeastern Japan. I booked my flight to Japan literally like 6 hours before the earthquake hit. I was like talking to my friend in Sendai, like, "Hey, I'm gonna come visit you. You know, I just booked my tickets." Like, all right, cool. And then 6 hours later, I'm looking at the news of like a tidal wave washing buildings down the street and boats, you know, flying into the suburbs and things like that. I was like, so I write him like, "Hey, dude, you okay?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "But you shouldn't come to Japan this summer." It's not a good time to visit Sendai. Trust me, dude. It's like, okay. Yeah, that was one of, honestly, the worst disasters I've seen in a long time. Okay, so we got a blurry area here. We got a sharper area here. It's still not that sharp because my daughter applied a, texture to a very large object. But that blurred out area, what it's doing there is there's a term in video gaming called MIP mapping. MIP mapping. And so what it does is it's a optimization technique that that has different levels of detail on a texture. So as you get closer to a texture, it'll load the high-res version, and as you get further and further away, it loads the lower resolution versions. And so let's see if we can find an example here. Yeah, I guess that'll work. Wow, what a great high resolution texture you are. Right, okay, so they might have a super high detail texture, and they might downsample it in half, which is pretty common. Downsample it to a quarter resolution, 8th resolution, 16th resolution. And the reason why they do that is to make it run faster, right? You need less texture RAM and texture memory, and it's easier to process lower detail settings. And normally MIP mapping is supposed to be invisible, right? You're not supposed to see that, right? Where it just so this is a very poorly done effect right there. It's supposed to be invisible. So as you get far enough away that you can't see the details, it's supposed to remove the details. In this case, it just looks pretty garbage. Okay, let's see if I can trigger it on the wall. I don't know if you guys can see it on the wall. Looks pretty good. So if you don't do MIP mapping right, what you'll see is as you get closer to it, you'll actually see details popping into existence. Like maybe some of the freckles and things like that. Like maybe that little freckle there. See how it vanishes? Right? So things like that to the observant eye. But that's not too bad, I don't think. I don't think it's too bad. But this, yeah, that just looks like horrible. It just looks horrible. And it might have something to do with the fact that it's scaled up. It's scaled way too big. It's scaled up way too big. Source engines use mip mapping to create spray decals that changes one moves. That's interesting. Oh, that's really cool. It's funny. Yeah, so that's mip mapping. And then there's a similar concept called level of detail. So if you have a tree, let's say, put a table out. Why not? Here's a table. Okay, so if you get really close to this table, you can see it's a curved surface. If we turn on wireframe mode, where are you? Brush wireframe. There you go. So if you turn on wireframe mode, you can see how many different triangles go into just this one table, right? And so if you're really close to it, then you actually probably need most of those triangles, right? Because it's doing like a little smooth shading kind of thing there, probably Fong shading or something like that on the curved surface. And to do a curved surface right, you need lots of triangles usually, unless you use NURBS. And so these things are going to have lower the speed of the camera. So you can see how many different triangles go into just this one table. It's quite a lot, right? And I don't know what the try count is on it. Let's see. 4,320. So it's 4,320. And we're rendering this in real time, all right? So, as I move away, you see how all the triangles are just kind of blurring together? Like, there's not even almost a point to having a triangle at this point, because you see it's just solid lines, right? Like all the triangles, like when the triangles are the size of like a pixel, like they're not really, or smaller than a pixel even, they're not really contributing anything, right? Like from this distance, I can't really make out individual triangles very well. And so there's something called LOD, which stands for either Lord of Darkness or level of detail. And that means that as you move away from an object, it replaces it with a lower detail object. Okay? So let me move away quickly. And so when you're this far away, you really could get away with just a dozen or two triangles, you know, to like even if somebody really looks at it, like it's really hard to make out any form of detail on a thing. The trouble is that like with mip mapping, as you zoom in, when you replace the low res model with a high res model, oftentimes it'll pop, and it looks really bad. 2B Booty got a lot of triangles. In Nier Automata, yeah. LOD popping. This is either going to give me breakdance moves. Yep, yeah, there we go. Jennifer Lopez, Love Don't Cost a Thing. Kids Bop Workshop, ASMR, nice. And then we've got computer graphics popping. So funny. So, level detail 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, so as you walk closer to this, it'll change from a pentagon into a hexagon into a 7-sided polygon. And it will examples of LED popping. Yeah, and it can look really bad. So we're walking forward. You see that building back there? The trees are popping. The building's popping. You want to watch this, girl? So when you get closer, it's going to replace a low-res model with a high-res model. And it's doing it very poorly because the guy keeps walking forward. There's no reason for it to switch back and forth. It might be a rounding error or something, but you see the popping, how like the tree?
Yeah.
Do you see how the tree changed right there? Bloop.
Yeah, how did it change?
It's got something called level of detail. So when you get close to something, it uses a very detailed model, and then when you get further away, it uses a high-res model, and if they don't do it right, then you see how this thing's switching back and forth right there. And so Yeah, these textures over here are also very washed out. The texture over here is washed out. You can see the buildings changing. Yeah, this is a very poorly done level of detail. And I would say the mapping is done pretty poorly too, because this is like smears of texture. Yeah, you can see the buildings over there popping as well. You see that over here? Yeah. That's... What game is that? Oh, the Arma engine. Okay. Yeah, it's really bad. And so you have to be very careful when you use level of detail to do it right. Unreal Engine does support automatic level of detail now. And so, let's see. And it works pretty well. Let's see. Hierarchical level of detail. So there's... Yeah, somewhere in here. Or maybe it's in the modeling thing. You can set up automatic levels of detail. So you don't have to worry about it. The engine will take care of it for you. How many triangles is too much for objects like statues? Great question. So Unreal Engine 5, lighting needs to be rebuilt because I added a table. Unreal Engine 5 is actually designed to make your life easier as a game developer by not having to answer questions like that. So if you have a statue, let's say, like you're asking, and it has 1,000,000 triangles in it, it looks really nice. Right now, what you have to do is you typically will export out of Maya or whatever modeling tool you use a low poly version of it. And the effect of that is, yeah, you've taken it from 1,000,000 down to 1,000. But let's say that video cards get better in the future, you can't, the game doesn't have any access to the higher fidelity version of it, and so it will permanently look bad. If you guys have ever played games that you thought were amazing a long time ago, and you played them on a modern PC in 4K, resolution, and they look garbage, the reason for that is because a lot of the times in the past, the resolution just wasn't very high, and these things were just kind of hidden by the fact that pixels were the size of your hand on the screen. And as technology gets better, you want your game to look better too. And so Unreal Engine 5 is based on the notion of you can have just a single, as far as I can tell, it's not out yet, right? You can have a single high poly count object in the game, and then they're going to reorder the triangles in such a way that as you get closer to it, it actually starts streaming in more detail. So from a distance, it's low poly, and as you walk forward, it streams in more and more details, ideally seamlessly, so the thing dynamically gets more or less detailed as you walk closer to it. In order to do that, you have to have a very high-speed SSD behind the scenes. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII. What amazing graphics in Final Fantasy VII. Man, that Bahamut so looks real. You can literally count the triangles in Cloud Strife's hair, right? What a sexy beast that guy is. Triangle hair. Yeah, and so Unreal Engine 5 is going to require having high-speed SSDs that can stream that geometry data in as needed. So as you walk closer to it, it floods the engine with the triangles it needs, and as you walk away, it can drop those, and so it maintains a high frame rate. So if that'll work or not, who knows? But that's kind of the selling point of Unreal Engine 5. And in fact, that was one of the reasons why the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X series have high-speed I/O in them. And the reason for that is because the engine manufacturers, like Unreal Engine, they actually worked with PlayStation on what the requirements they would need for the next generation of consoles. And they're like, I/O speed. We need fast I/O. There's so much cool stuff we can do if we just have a faster loading time. Okay. Yeah. So that's LED. That's bitmaps. Cool. All right. We talked about pre-computing visibility. We talked about building the lighting. We put in lights. We put in a point light. We put in a spotlight, We adjusted the angle of the sun and the color of the sun. Let's make it even more atmospheric. Let's add some fog. What do you guys think? Yeah, directional lighting. We can do directional lighting. That's typically used for skylights that are not the sun. So you can have a, it's like a plane, kind of. Well, it's basically the sun. But you can have just a plane of light shooting straight down from the heavens if you want. That's a directional light. Skylight illuminates the world from the sky dome, and that's nice if you just want to have your levels lit, you know, and not worry about darkness and things like that. So that makes it a lot brighter around the area. Real-time capture. Interesting. Yeah, but we can add fog. Let's add some fog. So, sky atmosphere. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Sky atmosphere. It's cool. Atmospheric light scattering, or do we want exponential fog? Which one do we want? Let's do exponential fog. Okay. And so this is under visual effects. Visual effects, and you drag out an exponential fog. Okay. And Mr. Stafford said fog helps with concealing bitmaps and LED changes. Yeah, that was a trick I leaned on heavily when I worked in the industry, because this was 20 something years ago, and graphics cards were not nearly as powerful. And so one trick you could do to keep your try count under control is just to not draw things past a certain point. So this is something called the far clipping plane. The far clipping plane means anything past that point, anything further than 50 meters away, doesn't get drawn, period. And that can speed up your frame rate. If I did that here, all of Ada's treehouse here would vanish. But the trouble is that as I walked towards it, it would pop in, right, which looks really, really bad. So what we would do is we would add fog. You add fog in, and then that hides the fact that you're just not drawing very much of the world. If you guys have ever played Oblivion does that. If you reduce the maximum draw distance, it actually will draw fog, and it'll appear like you're walking through fog, and new buildings come out of the fog at you. But that's really just because they're hiding the fact you're walking on a 2D disc, through the world. It's only drawing a very small radius around you, and it uses fog to make it appear as if you're actually on a world and not on a floating platform. Kind of like this, right? Like this is what the world of Oblivion looks like, with the draw distance turned down, and just the world would slide beneath you. And so with fog, you can conceal that. So fog in scary games, yeah, it's used atmospherically also, right? So it's used to create mood. So go ahead and drag out a exponential fog. It doesn't seem to matter very much where you put it. It's just a placeholder. All these things are just icons that you can just click on when you want to select them. Okay, so the fog details are over here on the details tab, and you can change the density of the fog. So right now the density is 0.02. If you turn that to 1, you can see the fog becomes a lot more dense and smoky. It's like basically being in Fresno during the summer. anytime Shaver Lake's on fire. You mean the area around Shaver Lake? No, the water. Like literally everything's on fire. Everything's burning. This is Fresno, right? Got a pandemic going on. My only source of exercise, because they shut down the gym, they shut down martial arts. My only source of exercise was, getting around the neighborhood. And then there's, fires for a month straight. We got fat. So, not right now, Mace. So, here's fog. And so that's the density. And then there is the height fall off. And so you can play with. Not right now, girl. I'm in class. I'll be out of class in half an hour though. Why don't you just use your workbook?
Creation?
Yeah, I've showed off your creation. Guys, what do you think of Ada's playhouse?
You can't really see it.
Can't.
It's kind of blurry.
What? Why? What
Okay, now it's not.
are you talking about? It's not blurry.
It used to be blurry.
It used to be blurry. What are you talking about?
Look.
Huh?
You keep
looks fine to me.
changing it. You keep changing
Looks fine to me.
it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You keep changing it. I know the tree kind
Oh, did you put a light in there?
Yeah.
Cool. I taught them how to place the light today. That's very nice. And so you can see the light reflecting off the shiny materials in here. Heidi Klum. Perfection. Thank you. Thank you, Steph. Stephanie. Do you I forget. It's been a while. Do you prefer Steph or Stephanie? Or Dolan? Don't have a preference. Cool. All right. So fog can be used to create mood. If you're walking through medieval England in the morning, you would expect to see some fog. You know, it softens the world a little bit. Oop! I deleted it. I thought I was deleting a thing here. And so you can play with these values and see what you like with it. Fog in scattering color, you can change the color of the fog by default. It's like a techno fog now. Need to get 9 cat in here or something. Yeah, so you can make really bizarre looking fogs. One trick I did use was one trick I used is when because we had fog everywhere, you know, to hide the fact the world was not being drawn. So what I did was when the player got more and more damage, I started tinting the fog red, and so you didn't need to look down at your health meter. You could just look at the tint of the color, right? So you're fine. Then as you start taking damage, like it starts getting bloody, and then when you're close to death, it gets red, and then when you're really dying, it rolls in. So the fog rolls in on you, and then you're dead, right? And so it was actually a really interesting tactical choice, because when you've got you know, like you're on your last legs and you're dying, you can barely even see anything, right? So people are shooting at you, and the fog just starts rolling in, and you've got like 3 seconds to live. You're like, I can barely see him. I can get off one more shot, you know, and you kill him, and you're like, yeah, you know, then you die. So it actually worked out really nicely from a game mechanic perspective, but it was mostly if many enemies are in your vicinity, it helps with flag. Yeah, that's true. But it actually worked out as a really intuitive way of telling if you were damaged, right? Because your eyes start clouding over with blood, you know, and stuff like that. Is kind of how it played out, and it was a pretty dramatic effect, and also the fact the death actually didn't happen immediately, which is unusual for most shooters, right? When you hit 0, you're dead, you know, and maybe it'll show you a replay of a guy sitting behind a warehouse over there shooting in the back of the head or something like that. But in our game, it actually took a couple seconds for the fog to roll in. So somebody would shoot you a bunch of times, you die, but you've still got the chance to like take out that jerk that killed you before the blood rolls in and you collapse to the ground, you die. So good heavens, or you know, whatever. You're a robot. It's not actually blood. So there you go, stuff. Yeah. So basically, it actually worked out really well from just a gameplay perspective as well. And so I actually wrote a fog engine that would like animate the fog. So the fog would actually breathe. The fog would actually kind of roll in and roll out, and then it would animate in different ways and stuff like that. So I actually spent like a week making this fog engine. I was very proud of it. I was probably your guys' age. So yeah, you change the fog color. Have they heard about second fogs? So you can have 2 different fogs, I guess. Fogs max opacity. So you can cap how thick the fog gets. If it gets too overwhelming, you know. So even from a distance, it doesn't really occlude the world very much. But then you get close, and you'll see the fog kind of gets a little bit thinner once you're close to an object. Brain fog, yeah. Starting distance, you can actually give yourself an area around you that is not fogged, right? Right, so the area immediately around you is excluded from the fog effect, right? And that's sometimes useful if you need to like look for things, right? It does look a little weird because the fog just suddenly starts, 10 meters away, right? But yeah, there are all sorts of options you can play with fog. And I've always had a affinity towards fog because I actually wanted to write my master's thesis on simulating clouds in fog. Like that was actually what I wanted to go to grad school for. In scattering texture, directional and scattering, volumetric fog is really cool. So volumetric fog will actually simulate the fog being a solid 3D presence. Without that, what it's doing a distance calculation. So basically, this kind of fog with volumetric off, what it's doing, it's saying how far is this point away from the eye. And so that's that many meters away. All right, let's run some algebra with the density, the fall off, the starting distance, the ending distance, blah, 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 blah. And we'll say, okay, that needs to be fogged at a level of 0.8. However, the fog max opacity is 0.1, so we're going to, make it 0.1, right? And so there's algebra that goes on that just basically draws a line from your eye to every point. There's what's called a depth map or a Z buffer that holds how far away every point is, and then it gets fogged based on how far those points are away from you. However, volumetric fog actually exists within the world. So volumetric fog actually simulates clouds and mists in place in the world. They can do God rays, which is pretty cool. You can see how there's like purple. Let's play the game actually. You actually see how there's a glow. There's a purple glow there. Look, it's like a 3D. Do you see that? Does that come through on Discord? There's actually like a physical, presence to the fog, right? And so it's kind of subtle, the area around it. You can definitely see that point, like right there. But there's actually in 3D space like this illuminated purple, thing. And back in our day, when we wanted to do that, you had to write the damn thing yourself, right? There's the spotlight. You can actually see the light coming through the fog, and there's all these parameters that change how it scatters and things like that. And so the very light spotlight I put there, you can even see that it's radiating a little bit of light right there. And it's a really nice effect. Yeah, you can see volumetric fog looks really nice. And you can also turn on God rays somewhere, which you guys don't know what I'm talking about.
Crepuscular rays.
Yeah.
More commonly
Crepuscular rays. That's the term. Crepuscular rays.
or sunbeams.
Yeah.
God rays.
So you guys see that? How like light's coming through, and based on the models of the buildings in the world and things like that. Yeah, you don't have to do anything special.
Are
You
most
can just
visible when the sun is below the horizon, but can appear at other times if the conditions are right.
yeah. So with
The reason
volumetric
for their
fog
appearance is
and
due to particles in the atmosphere. The lower the sun's position in the sky, the greater the chances of seeing it in its usual direction. Let's quickly discuss some of the pros and cons of each technique before we jump into Unreal. First up,
that's right. So yeah, volumetric fog combines really nice with with that. It makes for really neat looking. Yeah, let's try that. Let's see if light shafts work. No. Oh, yeah, you can see that. Do you see that? It's not a very good technique, light shafts. Yeah. How about that? I need to get some more better geometry up here to make it more interesting. It's like Stonehenge, right? You see how yeah, you need to have something a little more interesting than just a flat wall to get really interesting god beams out of it. Or crepuscular rays, right? Isn't that cool? So yeah, what I showed you was like the 2-second version of how to do it. You can watch that tutorial on how to do it, but basically volumetric fog interacts really nicely with turning on god beams. And so where were we? Oh, that's the thing, sunlight. So what you do if you want to turn that on is you click on the sun, and then under light shafts you turn on both those things. Let's see if that turns. Let's see. That looks even better. Yeah, that looks even better. And there are all sorts of settings that you can play with, and you see how the sunlight is casting like a solid rectangular, unfortunately, just a solid beam of light coming in like that. Yeah. So it gives the world a very 3D full appearance. The circle of life. It's really funny. When my daughter was a baby, I used to hold her up like Simba, you know. Start chanting Circle of Life. Yeah, so that's, and look at it. I mean, it's just like click, click, click. All right, there we go. We got sun rays in, you know. And you can play with these things to make it look nice. But just a little bit of fog, mess with the colors. Right now, it doesn't look like sunset very much, right? Because the fog is too white for that. The sunlight is still that kind of orangey color I chose for sunlight. It's not exactly the right color. But the fog is not exactly right. It's like a worse forest fire. Look, it's LA. Let's see. Yeah, that's a little bit more sunsetty. It's still not exactly. This is more like golden hour, which is, I guess, what I was going for actually. And so, yeah, choice of color. It's a little bit too. Still not. Oh, it's because of the purple here. Yeah, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. Okay. And so you can play with all these different things and really get a feel for what it takes to make a world look good. So that'll be your next thing, I think. Add some lights, add some fog. Maybe turn on, you know, crepuscular rays. So again, how you do that is you just click on the sun, click on the fog, turn on volumetric fog here, play with the parameters for thickness of the fog and stuff like that. And then on the sun, you go to light shafts. Light shafts is, you know, the God rays, right? And you can play with these different settings here as well. Light shaft occlusion is the cheap way of doing it. And the reason why it's cheap is that it... go back to it. The reason why it's cheap is that it does screen space, right? So what that means is that if you can see the sun, then it will send light shafts out of the sun. That was actually really cool how it shot through the table. But what happens if you move the sun out of the camera? See how it turns off? And screen space reflections and screen space God rays don't look good. You see how the God rays turn off right, like there, when you move the camera down. So I'm not really a huge fan of it. It is faster, but I typically have that turned off just because it's very jarring to have reflections and sunbeams and things like that just suddenly vanish, right? Whereas if you turn that off, then it will still do the God rays even if it's off screen. See? All right. Do you guys think you could do that? Make some fog, make some lights, make a beautiful British village in the dawn. Mist drifting lightly through the air. Just do, yeah, I don't know, something peaceful. Is that a fair assignment? Make a peaceful morning. Is that reasonable? We got 13 minutes left. We should probably talk about how to import things into Unreal Engine, because you're probably going to want to, you know, if you're going to make a peaceful British village, you're probably not going to want to do it like my daughter did, right? Tree! It's a cone, right? Not knocking her, like she's 8 years old and she built all this by herself. But you probably want to have like a real tree, and you want to have like a real British ye old pubby, you know, kind of thing. Ye is actually pronounced the, right? I don't know if you guys knew that. The Y character is actually the thorn character, which is the sound. It looks like a Y, so they started printing it as Y. So how do we import things? Well, there's a couple different ways. Let's say we want to import a sound. So there's different ways you can find free sounds, and the import process is basically the same for everything. Free sound effects. And freesound.org. All right, cool. Freesound.org. All right, so grenade wave. Sure, why not? Okay, so there's an explosion. All right, so log in to download. All right, do that. Do that. Click download. It's a WAV file. Unreal Engine imports WAV files. Unfortunately, it does not work with MP3s. So I'm going to just save this to my desktop. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to import it. So there's a couple different ways you can import. The giant green button down here, add import. Well, that's, you know, easy way of importing something. So we're going to import a sound. I wonder if we can import directly into a sound queue. Try that. No, it just created a new sound queue. Okay, never mind. Delete. Yes, delete. Yeah. So add import. Import asset. Let's not import here. Let's. I'm going to make my own folder, actually. New folder, Bill. You don't have to do this, but if you want to, from the content browser, you just right-click and create a new folder. I typically put my stuff in there just to keep it separate from the other stuff. And so I'm going to import into game bill. And let's see if we go up to the desktop. You can see that there is the wave file there. Double click on it, and boom, there it is. There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can drag it in. Let's see. There's the grenade. Cool. Yeah, I'll delete it. So if we go to the desktop here, then you can see there's the grenade, and I'm just going to rename this to be grenade, because why not? And then I can just drag that into the content browser here, and it imports that way. Another way you can do it is if you go into, if you right click on a folder, you can choose to open it in Windows. So Explorer, show an Explorer right there. Click on that, and that will open up the folder in Windows that the thing is in. And you can copy a file into that. So let's delete you. Delete you. And let's go over to the desktop. And so if you have your desktop folder and the bill folder, you can just drag it in like that. And then Unreal Engine will detect that it's been changed. The change to a source content file has been detected. Would you like to import it? Yes, I would. And then it appears that way. So there's lots of different ways of getting assets into your game. Oh, and the most important way is through the marketplace. So you can purchase for free assets like trees and things like that. And then I'll show you how to do that in a second. So no, I'll show you how to do it right now. So let's, I'm going to go and save everything. So let's go into Epic Games Launcher, go into the marketplace. Do you guys have any questions about how to import that? I know I showed it really fast, but basically that green button, you click on that and click import, and then you browse to wherever the asset it is you want to bring in, a wave file, a model, something like that. So let's see what's free for the month. See if there's anything in here that I want to purchase. Japanese Street, very cool. Oh, it's not working again. Oh, what the hell is wrong with it? It was doing this last time too. That's super annoying. That is super annoying. All right, add to cart, and then checkout. Well, that works. Or does it? No? Oh, yeah. Okay, good. So I don't think that was working last time. Loading your order, verify your information. Sure, $65 for free until the end of January, so hop on that now. Okay. And then if we go over to the library and we scroll down, search vault, what was it called? Western. I literally just bought it. I should remember it, shouldn't I? Western, yeah, Western Desert Town. Okay. All right. Is there a reason why you're not appearing here? Is there a reason my marketplace isn't working? You're not helping me out very much here, Unreal Engine. All right. So Western Desert Town, I own it. Okay. Click. Click. Okay, I'm not going to worry about Western Town. I'm just going to show you one that I already have on here. Vegetation, Fire and Flames. Through the Fire and Flames, Fantasy Fort, that's cool. Iceland, that's a good thing we can add here. Tropical Vegetation. Stud, like, yeah. So many different options. So many different options. Let's add some castle ruins. We're making, your assignment is going to be to make a lovely British village in the early morning. So I'm going to add to project Castle Ruins. So this is part of Megascans. Megascans, like I said before, was bought by Unreal Engine, and they just gave the entire company basically for free to everybody, which is really amazing. And so Mediterranean, let's do Castle Ruins. So I'm going to click Add to Project, and I'm going to click on add this to spring 2021. And then what's going to happen is it's going to download the assets because 30 gigs. Okay. Let's cancel that for now. Ancient treasures. Please be smaller. 1 gig. 5 minutes left in class. Yeah, I guess we'll beat that on time. Okay. So anyhow, so the process you go through is you purchase the thing on the marketplace if it works. I'm not sure why Unreal Marketplace is being so finicky right now. You purchase it. It will then appear in your library. So the top are the different versions of the engine you have installed. It is possible to have different versions of Unreal Engine installed. You typically do that if there's some incompatibility with a newer version. It happens sometimes, but usually I just uninstall the old versions and install the new versions, and things will break sometimes. You can see down here your projects, and it tells you what version they were made with. So this one was fairly old, 4.19, 4.25. This one's 4.26. So most of these I updated to 4.25 when I was teaching it last semester. And if I were to, update this guy, I would update to 4.26. Game of tag. And then below your projects is the vault, and that's all the stuff that you've purchased, all the assets you've purchased, and you can filter them. You can filter them by like just show me Megascans, right? And so you can just select all the different Megascans out there, or just show me music, fantasy music pack. Cool. Let's add that to spring 2021 also. It's gonna be 100 gigs. Queued. Okay, fine. Downloads. How big are you? I should tell you the size. I don't know. It's probably in there somewhere, but yeah, it's just kind of annoying that it doesn't just say right here like info. No. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how big it's going to be, but that'll import a bunch of medieval music into. There we go. 0.02 gigs, easy peasy. All right. And so what this does when it imports it, to come to my point, is that when it does this, it's downloading from the Unreal, game store. It's downloading the assets and it's copying them directly into your project. So it's actually cloning the all of the assets directly into your project. And so if I were to go back to the build folder here, where the grenade is, if I go up one level to content, you will see this is mirrored inside the content browser inside of Unreal Engine. You can see that there is now a folder called Ancient Treasures that has stuff.
What is ancient treasures?
It's ancient treasures of secrets of the Egyptian gold pharaohs. Made of meteorite metal.
If you're going to do that, say robbed Tutankhamun's tomb, which is so full of stuff.
He was buried with a dagger actually made of meteorites. It's a true story. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, because it would have been very rare. It would have been very rare because there's not a lot of meteorites, are there? And probably iron wasn't too common back then either. But like having an adamantine dagger, like, yeah, dude, I'm getting buried with that. Boom. It's +3 against mummies. You gotta have that when you're okay.
Can you change the floor? I hate the look of just sand.
It's not really sand. That's grass. That's you.
That's
by the way.
grass.
That's your grass. It's just grass in the twilight hours.
Can you turn it back to normal green grass?
Basic floor.
No.
It is green grass, girl. That's actually green.
How
green
come?
grass.
How come it just looks like sand though?
It's because the sunlight is.
And can you change the sunlight?
I could change the sunlight, but I'm not going to.
Oh, because that's what you're teaching.
Yeah, that's shiny.
Just go standard floor.
Steel floor.
No, just go with the normal plain floor.
Glass floor.
Okay, I like that.
You've heard of the glass ceiling,
Hey,
but
I want the glass floor. I want the glass floor. Where's the glass floor?
just drag glass onto it. There you
Yeah.
go. Okay, so there you go.
Can you walk into the little house I created? I decapitated a
We're out of time, girl. So,
I
so no.
decapitated a snowman.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. But let me show you how to bring assets in. So I clicked on the import, and it copied them directly into here. So if I go to the content browser, you can see there's now a folder called Ancient Treasures, and there is a folder called Fantasy Orchestral. And if you double click on that, you can see Elven music. So you can add some background music to it. And then under Ancient Treasures, you can see that there are all sorts of different things you can add. And so basically for that mega scan that I was going to use, you could drag out a castle, right? And here we'll drag out a treasure chest.
Put that inside the house.
Put it inside of the house. Okay.
Put it inside the house. That's what the house is for.
The house is supposed to have a treasure.
The house is supposed to be where all your stuff is.
You want the treasure closed or treasure open?
Closed.
One of those, and then I'll put an open one here too. And then I'll rotate it like that.
Why have two?
Because I'm going to put some treasure into it, girl. I'm going to put the Holy Grail into there. Boom. And there. And a bangle. Why not? Put all that stuff in there.
Maybe that.
Maybe that one. Alright, sure. Why not?
That.
That one?
You need plates.
You need plates. Definitely need plates. Let's throw that. That's too big to go in.
Okay.
There we go. Just throw all this stuff in here. There we go. Alright.
Yeah.
And then, let me come up here. So that's all it takes, right? So you just go into the marketplace, purchase for free, hopefully, whatever you're interested in, and then look,
Or how
here's a
about
treasure chest, and
Put the plate on top of the closed one.
then here's, you can see there's some. It's kind of hard to see because it's dark, but there's the Holy Grail.
Can you change the lighting, please? It just
No.
looks horrible.
It is. I'm doing that because you see the volumetric fog there. That's what I was trying to teach the students today. Do you see that beautiful?
Wait, is that a table right there?
Yes, it is.
Can you put that inside the house?
Right. So I was teaching them how to do God rays and how to do volumetric fog, how to do lighting, and how to import objects. So that's going to be your little Unreal Engine assignment. Post the screenshot onto Discord. I'll try not to miss some. I missed a few students last times of your quaint British village in the morning. A little bit of fog, a little bit of light. Aura of mystery of the Cotswolds.
Because I was planning on putting a table outside for like a lounge and then 2 chairs next to it.
Why not? That tree is pure art. Do Tuesday or Thursday? British Western Village. Tuesday. It's on. I mean, honestly, your game design thing is a group thing, and it shouldn't take that long. And making a little pretty village, honestly.
Oh, what you can do is you can put like one of those treasures on top. You could put for the lounge outside next to the house on the garden. You can put two cups, 2 of the same cups on either side for like the
drinking. You put a table and put some
For
drinks.
sure.
Put some drinks on the table.
Well,
Well, I like the way you're thinking, girl. There, and then there. This is what we call a pimp cup, Ada.
walk over. You know you can walk on. Here. Okay, go up. No, go up. Go up.
Girl, we got to finish fast. So yeah, there's plenty of free assets out there you can use
Is
to make
there?
a quaint village. Okay.
Ooh.
Any questions, guys?
I have a question. Is there any pies? Can you create any food?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Not in the ancient treasures. You don't want to eat most ancient food. Honey, they found honey that was still edible.
But they put a museum instead.
I don't know.
Or
And
did
they
eat
found
it?
they found some grains of like ancient bread that they planted and actually were able to grow the ancient crops and made beer from it
Or did they do that?
to see what it tasted like. You know, who knows how different wheat tastes today than it does from back then. So they, planted it and grew it and made some bread out of it and made some beer out of it and just to see. It's experimental archaeology. Pellegrino, you got a question? A whole village in one screenshot, or it could be one big room in a peaceful village. I mean, if you need to post multiple screenshots, that's fine too. But basically, I was just thinking like just a little cottage, like a Thomas Kincaid style thing, and I'm not expecting like you guys to really Kincaid. I'm not really expecting you guys to make massive work of art, but this kind of thing, just a cozy little British thing. And the thing that my wife and I always say whenever we see a Thomas Kincaid picture is like, would you want to live there? Looks very cozy, but would you want to live there? And my answer is usually no, because you are right up against that stream. You are right up against the stream. That is going to flood. That cottage is going to look real cozy until it rains, and then the water is going to come straight in through your front door. You need sandbags and nobody's even going to sell you flood insurance. Look at that. That water level is at the level of your door. And all of these houses are built right up against. Oh, look at that. That's okay. That's stone at least. Look at that. The second it rains, the water is just gonna come right in through the front door. They don't show that side of Thomas Kincaid, the FEMA the FEMA version. Maybe they're mer people. Nice. Mosquitoes. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of mosquitoes here. So Thomas Kincaid is a I think he's dead now. I don't know, but he paints these like very cozy, like he's like the most famous cozy cottage painter, right? So he always paints cozy cottages. There's always a warm yellow light inside, inviting you back home, and there's a river and a bridge and smoke coming up from all four of the chimneys. And
So we're allowed to eat it tonight?
Mace, would you want to live here? Mace, would you want to live here? Cottage right here, cozy cottage.
Dude, it's in a flood zone. Unless your house isn't sure.
Wonder if there's pie, raspberry pie. Undoubtedly, the people love raspberry pies there. There's a turkey in your front yard. There's a turkey hanging out next to your canoe.
Mallard ducks. Mallard ducks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Something like that. I mean, obviously not.
Somebody already lives there.
Obviously not that level of quality, but yeah, that's the general idea.
Next lesson, are you going to clear up the sky?
Maybe, but for now, we'll just leave it like that. Okay. So fog lights, and then models, and then just make it look peaceful and tranquil. Okay. And that is it for today, guys. What are we learning with Ada today? We went over Ada's secret playhouse up there. What's going on, Lolly? All right, I'm gonna turn off the recording now, and I'll hang out here for a little bit and hang out with Sakana.